you know, how much of the difference do all of those little interventions, you know, the hydration, pre-cooling, and everything else, how much of it, an edge does it give a rider? How much of a difference is it going to make, do you think?
Yeah, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of little details you have to attend to in a single day of the tour. Um, how much that accumulates to performance is hard to say. What you can say is that the whole is bigger than any of the individual parts, and that you start to dismantle a few of those parts, and you might take away all of the performance, right? So it's not to say that, hey, this thing is worth 2%, and this thing is worth 3%, and this thing is worth 5%, and at the end we have a 25% advantage over all the other teams. It doesn't really work that way. I think how it works is that you put all these things together and you get an emergent property, something that is bigger than any of those individual parts itself. In that sense, they're all super, super important, and every one of those details is super important. In the end, though, it's really about the mind, and when guys believe that we're doing everything, that they're doing everything that they can to get the best performance possible, then they get the best performance possible. And so oftentimes I kind of joke that all these little pieces of science that we try to apply are really just new placebos, and that's fine, because placebos can have a short-term positive effect on things, and then we're on to find the next new series of little placebos. But there are certain things that are also very, very basic, like proper hydration or nutrition, right? So if the guys are glycogen depleted, or if they don't eat enough food, doesn't matter, how well everything else is going. If you bonk, and you're dead in the water. So some of this stuff is also very, very critical. In the end, you hope that all these tiny little marginal gains create, magical performances.
So what about, so we're in Spain right now, and it's pretty hot here, and this is probably pretty indicative of what it's going to be like in the south of France.
Yeah.
Is there a history of riders overheating during stages in the tour?
Yeah, I think that every rider overheats in the tour, and I think every rider overheats without even realizing they're overheating. They lose power, they fatigue, they end up not being able to do the work that they know they can, and they end up coming back with some upset or disappointment. So we're always mindful of that, and sometimes that's as simple as filling a pair of pantyhose with ice and handing it to a guy in the middle of the race.
Is there a particular reason you're talking about pantyhose versus some other container?
Well, it's light, right? It's cheap. You can get it everywhere. The problem with, I think, a lot of the theory in sport is that unless you can actually apply it, make it practical, then it's just all shop talk, right? I mean, we should just be sitting on a couch somewhere in an air-conditioned room talking about how to keep ourselves cooler, as opposed to, well, what is simple, what is readily available, what are the tools on hand that can make a big change in performance. And the biggest tool is really just a cold bottle of fluid, right? Cold bottle of X, as we call it. We'll mark all the bottles with carbohydrate electrolyte solution. It's a little X, and so guys coming back for a bottle of X.
Yeah. So, how much of a difference does proper, good thermoregulation make to a rider, you think?
Can I just finish?